Hey guys, welcome back to the channel helping you earn more, spend less, and invest the difference. This channel is all about personal finance. Now, in this particular video, we're going to be talking about how to pay down your mountain of debt that you've got very, very rapidly, even if you don't earn a lot of money. Now, if you're struggling with debt and you're living paycheck to paycheck, then you're not alone. In fact, almost 80% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. The majority of people don't have a savings, an emergency fund for when life throws them a curveball. Now, when I heard that about 80% of people live paycheck to paycheck, that was pretty surprising, but what really surprised me was when I dug a little bit deeper and saw the breakdown. Now, you might think that somebody that's earning minimum wage or $20,000 or $30,000 a year, you might just sort of expect that, yeah, okay, they're struggling financially, they're having a tough time paying bills, and they're probably living paycheck to paycheck. But studies have shown time and time again that it doesn't really matter if you make $20,000 a year or $30,000 a year or $75,000 a year. Statistically, all of those people are equally likely to be living paycheck to paycheck. It's only once somebody's annual income passes about $75,000, that seems to be sort of the magic threshold for whatever reason, does your chances of living paycheck to paycheck actually improve. So what that tells me, at least, is it's not necessarily an income problem, it's a spending problem. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm all for earning additional income. Earning more money is one of the easiest ways to get out of debt, to become financially independent, and to be able to retire and lead the kind of life that you want. But earning more money alone is not going to get the job done because lifestyle creep starts to take over. So the more money you earn, the more money you're likely to spend. So even though you're earning more money, you're also spending more money, so you haven't really made any progress. Now, when most people get fed up with their financial situation and they really commit to making a meaningful change in their lives, they tend to do things a little bit backwards from what you probably should do. They tend to look at things from a bottom-up perspective on how they can save a little bit of extra money. So what do I mean by that? Well, most people, when they're trying to save money, look for little wins. They try to find little things here and there that they can cut back on that'll save them some extra money. So maybe you treat yourself on the way to work to some Starbucks coffee 2 or 3 times a week. So you're like, well, I'm just gonna cut that out. That'll, that Starbucks coffee is like $4 a cup, so that'll save me like $10 a week. Now, don't get me wrong, saving $10 a week or $40 a month, that's fantastic. But $40 a month is not going to get you to your financial goals. So not only is cutting out this morning coffee routine probably not going to get you to your goals anytime soon, but it's also cutting out a lot of the things that bring you joy in life. It's those little treats that make life bearable. So what happens more often than not when we cut out some of those treats and indulgences that we have? We can sometimes go a long ways without treating ourselves, but eventually things tend to bubble up and we're like, I need to treat myself. And so instead of that little $4 cup of coffee, you might go out and buy a $100 pair of shoes, or maybe you go take a vacation, some big expensive vacation. And so what started off as saving $40 a month turned into a $1,000 cruise that you went on because you feel the need to treat yourself because you haven't been treating yourself along the way. Instead, what I suggest is to do a top-down approach to your finances. So what this means is you're going to start at the top, your most expensive monthly bills. What do you spend the most money on? And start looking for ways to cut back on that. Don't start at the bottom trying to save $1 or $2 here and there. Start at the top, because when you start at the top, making minor changes can save you multiple hundreds of dollars a month. So for most people, their single biggest monthly expense is their housing situation. Now, if you're single or maybe you're married and you don't have any kids just yet and you're renting an apartment, do you really need a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment? Would it make financial sense to find somewhere else to live and get rid of that 3-bedroom apartment and scale down to a 1-bedroom or even a studio apartment? You can probably save $400 or $500 a month or more, depending on what city you live in, just by making and downgrading your housing situation. Or maybe you're single and you're currently living in a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment. Would it make sense to get 1 or 2 roommates and then split the bill in half or by thirds? If your monthly rent is $1,500 a month and then maybe $200 a month for utilities, that means you're paying $1,700 a month. But if you got 2 roommates, then your share of the bills would only be about a little under $600 a month. And that's going to save you $1,100 a month. Now, is $1,100 a month going to get you to your financial goals a little bit faster than cutting out your coffee is going to? Yeah, absolutely. Or maybe you want that extra bedroom because it's always nice to have extra room when guests come over so that they have a place to stay. But think back for the last, 5 years or so. How often have you actually used that spare bedroom? If you're like most people, they might use that spare bedroom once every couple of years. So if that's the case, is it really worth paying a couple $100 a month extra to have a slightly larger apartment just so you can use it once every few years? That doesn't make any sense. What does make sense is paying for what you actually need. If you can downsize to a smaller apartment, not only are you going to save on rent, but you can also save on your furniture because now you don't have to furnish a full 3-bedroom apartment. Now you just need 1 bedroom set instead of 3, so you don't have to spend a bunch of money on furniture. You're going to save on utilities because you don't need to heat and cool a larger apartment, etc. Plus, it's just easier to clean and manage. For most people, their second biggest expense is usually their transportation. Owning a car is that sneaky expense. It doesn't really appear to be all that expensive on the surface, but if you dig a little bit deeper, it's a massive expense. In fact, most financial experts estimate that the average American spends about $8,500 a year simply by owning a car. So that's going to break down into about $700 a month. Now, some of that is really easy to see. You have your monthly car payment, which is maybe $250 or $300 a month or something like that. And you also know that every month you got, let's just say, $100 for insurance, etc. But what people don't really see is all of those smaller expenses that are spread out over time. Maybe you spend $150 a month in gas. And not only that, but it's all of those maintenance issues. When you're driving, you're getting 1 step closer to needing an oil change. You're getting 1 step closer to needing to get new tires or to replace that transmission that's about to go out. All of those bills are massively expensive, but they don't happen every year or every month. So it's one of those things that we tend to forget about it until we get punched in the face with a $400 bill to replace our 4 tires, etc. And of course, we have just general depreciation. Cars typically lose about 50% of their overall value in the first 5 years of ownership. So that $30,000 car that you bought new a couple of years ago, chances are it might be worth $15,000 or less today. Now, most people would say that owning a car is a necessity, but is it? The city I live in is sort of an average sized city. It has a few 100,000 people in it. So not real small, but also not a major metropolis. But for me, a 1-month bus pass would cost about $40 a month for unlimited bus rides anywhere within the city. Now, I know a lot of people don't like taking the bus, But at roughly $500 a year, that's an $8,000 a year savings just by taking the bus for 1 year. I'm not saying you got to take the bus for the rest of your life, but would you be willing to take the bus for a year, 6 months, 2 years, if it meant getting you to the place financially that you want to be? Even if you just took the bus to and from work or to and from the grocery store, because typically grocery stores are parked very close to bus stops. If you just took the bus to those locations, that alone would save you a lot of money. If you're trying to go out on the weekend, maybe you're trying to go downtown to hang out with your friends or something like that, you could still take an Uber. Maybe it's $10 one way, so $20 round trip. But when you're only spending $40 a month on transportation, you could take an Uber every single weekend and still only spend, give or take, $100 a month, which is a $600 a month savings as opposed to your typical cost of owning a car. Now, once again, I get it. People don't want to take the bus. But taking the bus for a short amount of time is well worth it if it means getting out of debt. I mean, think about it this way. Would you rather take the bus for a year, or would you rather spend the next 10 years or 20 years drowning in debt? Think of how much better you would feel knowing that your credit card bills are paid off, that you just don't have any debt. Think of how stress-free and relaxing that would be, emotionally speaking, just knowing that your bills are paid. And then for most people, the next biggest expense is typically food, and this is usually broken down into two different categories: groceries, eating at the house, versus dining out, going to restaurants and fast food and that kind of thing. Now, obviously, people know that going out to eat is significantly more expensive than cooking at your house. So if you're trying to save money, obviously the less you can eat out and the more that you can cook at home, the more money you're going to save. That's sort of a no-brainer. But even when it comes to eating at the house, there's some simple changes that you can make that will dramatically increase your savings rate and drop that food cost significantly lower. For example, some food groups are just very, very expensive, even if you prepare it at the house yourself. This is especially true of various meats, especially things like fish and seafood, but also steaks, roast beef, hamburger, etc. On a per pound basis, this can be very expensive. So this can obviously be very, very expensive. But even sometimes just cutting back on some of these things and substituting them with different foods can save significant amounts of money. Some food groups are very, very cheap. Eggs, pasta, rice, potatoes. All of this stuff is dirt cheap. You can buy a 10-pound bag of potatoes for, just a couple of bucks. So if you just have a little bit more of these types of food groups, maybe you make some spaghetti every once in a while, or some sort of Parmesan Alfredo pasta type of a dish, that is going to cost you just a few cents in order to make that meal. So a combination of eating out less and preparing more of your food at home, in addition to preparing the right types of foods that are going to be significantly cheaper than some of your other types of foods, you can save hundreds of dollars a month on your grocery bill. This, combined with your housing expenses and your transportation expenses, could potentially save you thousands of dollars a month. And that means you're going to get to that financial situation where you want to be at relatively quickly. You're going to be able to pay down your credit card debt. You're going to be able to pay down your student loans. You're going to have a savings account that you're going to be able to start building up with some emergency funds. And once you have some breathing room, it's okay to introduce a few of those indulgences back into your life. Maybe you do upgrade then at that point to having a spare bedroom once again. Maybe you do go back to owning your own car, but maybe you don't own a $30,000 brand new car. Maybe you go out and buy something that's 5 years old and you buy it for $10,000 used. All of these things are going to get you to your financial goals very, very rapidly. Usually between 6 months to a year or two, and you should be out of debt and you should be well on your way to financial freedom. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe, leave a comment down below. I love hearing from you guys. And as always, I'll see you all again next time. Thanks.